Council, we're back. We have a double header this evening. We met at 6 and now we're reconvening at 7. Wednesday, July 27th. Thank you all for coming. We will call the meeting to order right at 7 o'clock. Members of the public have been invited to participate in this council meeting to receive a registration link to join. The public were expected to have the opportunity to join us at 153 McCullough Street, but due to unforeseen circumstances, that wasn't possible tonight. But we thank you for anyone that is in attendance. Council, any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Yes, Councillor Choi.
Yes, I have a conflict with 16F and 16G.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll make note of that. 16F, 16G. Any other conflicts? Seeing none, we'll proceed. No, oh, I'm sorry, Krista, I missed you. Go ahead, Councillor Cal.
I have a conflict and I've submitted my paperwork for 16E.
16E. Okay. Those have been noted, and Jill has been made aware of those. Additions to the agenda, Council. The agenda has been circulated. Any errors, omissions, or additions? Yes, Councillor Cal.
Thank you. I'd like to have an addition, a verbal report from Mr. Storms about the transfer station, please.
Okay. Council, any other additions or corrections? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Martin, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Allen. I was just inquiring why 1C in the closed session is not in the open session. We're not hiring anybody. This is a new position, and I feel it should be discussed in an open session.
I'm going to defer that answer to Jill. She'll have, I'm sure, a wholesome answer for you, Councillor Vink. Jill, could you comment on that?
The matter does relate to personal individuals' information, so that's why it's being discussed in closed session. So,
Martin, an identifiable individual is part of the conversation. Thus, it will be the chair rules. It will be in committee of the whole. Any others? Yes, Councillor Cal.
Thank you. Sorry, added to the closed session, I know there'd been a bit of information exchanged, but there was the opportunity to have the RFP designs shared, I believe, in closed session, and I was wondering if that's still available, and if so, can it be added to the agenda? Okay,
Jill, I think that if that can be added to the closed, the chair sees no harm in that. Reminding of council that it be kept confidential, and that'll be fine, and no photographs taken. That will be permissible. The chair will allow it, and thank you, Councillor Kell, for bringing that to the chair's attention. Anything else on the agenda? Then we will have the adoption of the agenda as circulated with the addition of a verbal report from operations on the transfer station and a report on the RFP regarding the playground equipment. I'll entertain a motion for that. Would someone please move that? Councillor Cowell, seconder, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Delegations and presentations. There are none. We will delve into the consent agenda. If any of council wish to deal with these in a very simplified manner, we can do it as I call them out. If it's more complex, please, we will move them to a new business under number 12. 5E, June 22nd, special meeting of council, regular council minutes, official plan 5-year updates. John Street extension regarding the math, slightly over budget, very slightly. Minister of Labor investigations. Yes, Councillor Cal.
I had a question I shared with staff earlier, but was unable to get a response because of my own, I had to go. So I was wondering if it was possible, if staff is able to provide a response now to my question. So my question was, how many of these complaints have we received in the last 4 years, and have they all been made with false names?
Jill, if you can answer that, you're privy to that information. I'm not. If you feel comfortable answering it, if not, we can defer it for further consideration. I don't want you taken by surprise there.
Sure. So in 2018, we had a complaint and Ministry of Labor come, and they did an investigation based on what was submitted, but they had let us know that it was an anonymous complaint, but the information that they provided to the ministry was also a false name. That was the same for the one that just happened about a month ago. The investigation that was related to the truck was they said that they didn't even check to see whether or not it was a false name. And with respect to today, I don't have an answer for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Moving on, 5D, site plan amendment to Silver Dove. 5E, first half 2022 building summary. 5F, Southwest Middlesex June building report. 12 million for 2022. 5G, Southwest Middlesex vouchers. And I thank council for making any inquiries directly to Kristen. 5H, Middlesex County meeting highlights, June 14th. And 5I is the St. Clair Conservation Authority meeting highlights. Yes, go ahead, Krista.
Sorry, mine's for the next one. I was getting ready.
Hastings County resolution expanding Amber Alert in relationship to special needs people. Yes, Councillor Cal, please go ahead.
I'd like to pull this out and have it be something we support later on. But before we move on, I just wanted to comment about the personal nature of this. I'm sorry if I get emotional. My nephew is one such person, and he has wandered away from home and been lost. And if not for the kindness of a stranger, we don't know what would have happened. So my family and I personally would love to see a program like this, because it will probably happen again. And I hope that an Amber Alert can save someone like him.
Good. Yep, the chair too realizes that problem, and I was hoping that that would be brought forth. Thank you. 5K, Township of Mulmar resolution, climate change emergency declaration. And 5I, City of Owen Sound resolution, removal of municipal councillors under prescribed circumstances. Yes, there's two hands up here. Councillor McGill, I saw your hand went up first just moments before Councillor Cal. Please go ahead.
Could we pull that one out to hopefully support it?
And Councillor Cowell.
My
You're-
comment was the same, and I'll happy to speak on it later.
Okay. And continuing on, we are 5M, County of Frontenac Resolution, Community School Alliance for Small Communities, rural and northern caucus. Following the lifting of the moratorium, they want the rural and northern fund to remain, education fund to remain. Any comment on that? Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. This is just what we supported last month. This council supported last month, supporting the CIS.
Okay, thank you. So we have acted upon that. 5N, Town of Aurora Resolution Bill C-233, Kira's Law, violence against women. Yes, Councillor Choi.
Yes, I'd like to support that.
Okay, could you move that, Councillor Choi, and we'll get a seconder and endorse that now if you'd like. Would you so move it?
Yes, I would.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that, please? Councillor Cowell. Discussion. Certainly well worth supporting, and I'm glad it was brought forth. Chair will call the question. All in favor of supporting the resolution? It is carried and will be endorsed. 5O, Municipality of Tweed Resolution, Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation Program. Yes, go ahead, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Yes, I'd like to support this motion.
Okay, Martin, would you like to make that a motion right now? Move that and we'll get a seconder for that and move on.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Yes, Councillor McGill, thank you. Council, is there any discussion? Just in regard to Ontario Wildlife Damage Compensation, Councillor Vink, I was hoping that at some time in the future, they would look at the crop loss involved. There are millions of dollars of crop loss in Southwest Middlesex because of wild animals. And there's no restitution for that whatsoever. And it is a 7-figure number. And if you look at any bean field or cornfield, you'll see on the periphery of river flats and bush lots, there's so much loss to farmers on that. And that's a subject for another day, I know, but I would like to see that in that program at some time. Any questions? All in favor of endorsing the letter? Please raise your hand. Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Vink. 5P, Ministry of the Environment, Conservation Parks, amendments to Hydro 1 Class EA. Just a notice of amendment. And 5Q, the last one, Municipality of Shunaya, letter of support for City of Brantford Resolution, Mohawk Institute Residential School, the release of documents. Okay, thank you. Council, the chair will entertain a motion to receive the consent agenda with the exception of 5J and 5I, which will be discussed under new business. May I have a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Cowell, a seconder. Councillor Bartlett, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Carried.
It's 5L that.
Oh, is it 5L? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Owen
5L.
Sound.
Oh, yeah, okay. Should have made a capital. Okay, 5L. Thank you. We'll deal with that, and I've made note of that, Mark. Committee of Adjustment, none. And we are into public meetings. We have a court of revision on the Wiley Drain, the McCann Branch 2. Council, you will see a separate agenda for this. And may I have a motion that we move into court of revision at 7:15? Councillor Cowell moved it. A seconder, please. A seconder, please. Councillor Vink. All in favor? Carried.
Sorry,
Yes.
can you say who is going to be making up the court of revision?
Oh, I can certainly. This is in Mosa Township, I believe. And therefore, we will take, I like 5 members on the board. So we will take Councillor Vink, Councillor Scholdice, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Could we have the honor of you joining us? And I will be there. And Jill, what does that put us at? We've got 1, 2, 3. And Councillor McGill, farming background, we'd like to have you in there. Would you join us, please? And that will constitute the 5. Thank you. I see heads nodding there, so that will strike the court of revision with those 5 members mentioned, and we will go into court at 7:16. May I have a motion for that, please? Again, I apologize for that, but I think Councillor Cowell put up Deputy Mayor Wilkins, and I'll have a seconder for that. Councillor Cowell. All in favor? Carried. We will call the court of revision together at 7:17. This court is sitting for the Wiley Drain, McCann Branch 2. Members of the public are invited to participate in this meeting by accessing the meeting, which will be streamed live on the Southwest Middlesex YouTube channel. Disclosure of pecuniary interest, are there any? Seeing none, we'll proceed on with the delegation and presentations. Sprite Associates will present the engineering report for the Wiley McCann Drain, branch number 2. And who do we have? Andrew, will you be speaking on their behalf? Are there any present?
I believe that someone from Sprite will be here. Jill, is that the case?
It should be Mike DeVos, but I don't see him having registered. He's not listed as an attendee yet.
Okay. Well, I will just briefly introduce this. This project is a drain reconstruction. It is entirely enclosed. It's a relatively simple project. It spans 2 properties, both of which are owned by the same family. And there is a road crossing, and I believe it's 2 catch basins that's involved. And the assessment schedule that is laid out is split between those 2 properties and the road. And I have not received any complaints or appeals with regards to the assessment. The act is reasonably clear when it comes to that it is supposed to be a written appeal, and we have not received any types of appeals.
Andrew, thank you very much for filling in there. When Mike appeared, yes, and Greg, I see your hand up there. Please go ahead if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, I do have Mike on the phone who's had trouble getting on, but I do have him on the phone. If he can certainly speak to this as well, if you wish, Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Greg, very much. So if you can put that phone up to your microphone, we certainly welcome Mike, and we understand that technical difficulties happen. Mike, please go ahead. Greg will be your director there, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Want me to go ahead, Greg?
Yeah, for sure. Can you hear Mike all right?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. It's being the court of revision. I have not had any questions or concerns with the assessments, so I'm not aware of any appeals or concerns.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much for that. As the court realizes, there is a process that we take. It's important that we go through every one. We have been advised in relationship to the order of appeals, there have been none. So we can move on. Questions from members. Do any of members of council have any questions that they would like to extend through the chair to Mike or Andrew on this? Yes, Councillor McGill, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. To Mike, through the mayor, to Mike DeVos, how common is that 50 mm design? I don't think we've had one that big in Southwest Middlesex this term of council.
Mike, can you address that, Mike? Oh,
Yeah,
Greg, you're
sorry,
muted.
I was on mute there. Sorry. I'm muting for two people now.
Okay.
Sorry. go
Yeah,
ahead.
I would say that maybe somewhere between 10 and 15% of our drains, maybe. On occasion, I would say that there's farmers in several municipalities that believe that should be done.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Greg. Any follow-ups, Councilor McGill? You're okay? Okay. Any further questions from the court? Seeing no hands, we are at the third step of a 5-step process here. Deliberations of the court of revision, and I don't, if there's any changes that you wish to make, or if you're in acceptance of what the engineer has proposed, we can move on. Yes, Councillor Vink, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. I move to agree with the agreement there.
Okay, fine, we can do that. There's no, that would be the last step, and thank you, Councillor Vink, for that. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Scholdice, that the assessment is levied by Spreet and Associates dated May 6, 2022, and adopted by provisional bylaw 2022-052 to pay for the drainage works known as the Wiley Drain McCann Branch 2 be confirmed. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. We will adjourn the court at 7:22. Okay. And we are on B. Stephanie, is Stephanie with us? Who will be presenting this? Jill is there. She is right there in front of me. Stephanie, thank you very much for being with us again this evening. 7B, could you please advise council of the purpose and effect of this application?
I can, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. All right, the purpose and effect of the temporary use zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the subject lands from the general agricultural A1 zone to the temporary site-specific general agricultural A1-13-T zone in order to permit 2 single detached dwellings on an agricultural lot for a period not to exceed 2 years while a new residence is being constructed on the land. The existing residence would be removed upon the expiration of the 2-year period or occupancy of the new single detached dwelling, whichever occurs first. The subject lands are approximately 70 acres in size and contains a single detached dwelling and a shed. The subject lands are serviced by a private well and septic system and have an existing access off Big Bend Road. The proposed new dwelling is to be located to the rear of the existing dwelling in general accordance to the site plan provided. So I think you should be able to see in front of you the site plan that was provided. The existing home is located a bit closer to the road than the newly proposed dwelling to the rear. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed temporary use is in conformity with the policy documents and do not have any concerns in regards to compatibility, servicing, access, or impacts to surrounding agricultural uses as a result of temporarily allowing 2 dwellings on the subject lands. The proposed new dwelling appears to meet the zoning requirements of the general agricultural A1 zone. Staff are in a position to support the application and are satisfied that the existing dwelling will be demolished within the 2-year period of the bylaw or until the occupancy of the new dwelling as per the temporary use agreement. Notice of the application has been circulated to agencies as well as property owners in accordance to the requirements of the Planning Act, and staff received the following comments. The St. Clair Region Conservation Authority has reviewed the subject report and has no concerns with the proposed application. Rogers Telecommunications does not have any infrastructure in the area. Lower Thames Valley Conservation Authority notes that the property is located outside of their jurisdiction. And CN Rail recommends the following be implemented as a condition of approval: that the owner shall be required to grant CN Rail an environmental easement for operational noise and vibrations emissions registered against the subject property in favor of CN. It is noted that staff did provide a response to CN to advise that conditions are not able to be implemented through a rezoning application as per the Planning Act. And due to the temporary nature of the agreement, staff do not have any mechanisms to enforce that request. So it is recommended that the application be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for that report. Is the applicant present to make any remarks? Or anyone on there?
They are present. I would think if you have any questions, Alan.
Okay, all right. If there's any questions you would like to direct to the applicant, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will move on. Greg, I just saw your hand move there. I thought you were scratching your nose though, Greg, so you're good. We can go, Jill, any oral or written submissions? None? Okay, thank you very much. Council, we are at a junction now where the recommendation can be accepted. Any discussion in regard to Stephanie's recommendation? Yes, Michael, go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, is there a seconder for that? Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Discussion has been called. I will ask you to raise your hand if you're in favor of the recommendation, please. All in favor? Recommendation is carried. Thank you very much, and thank you, Stephanie, again.
Have a good night.
You as well. Staff reports, fire, there is none, I believe. Jill, I'll just kind of glance up at you there and correct me if I'm wrong here. Administration, we have 2023 council meeting dates. I'd like to thank Kendra and Jill for processing those. Any questions in relationship to that? Failing which, can we have the 2023 council schedule be received and approved as Appendix A? Motion, Councillor Vink moved it. Councillor Bartlett seconded the motion. Any questions? All in favor?
Oh, yeah, Mayor Allen, can I ask a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Martin. I thought you moved it. Yeah. You're just a little on delay there, Martin. You're just breaking up a bit and you're
I'm sorry.
Slow, but it's okay. The chair will entertain your question out of courtesy. No problem. Yeah. Oh, I can't hear you, Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes. Keep going.
Okay. Okay, good, Mayor Allen. The question is, we are probably going to have quite a few new members next year. can this schedule be changed next year?
I'm sure that we're adaptable as an administration and a council, and none of us have a crystal ball, Martin, to know how that is going to turn out. But we certainly try to accommodate our electorate and our councilors and our administration, and we change meeting dates on a regular basis, as we just recently did in a July meeting where there was no business. We can postpone a meeting or cancel a meeting, and we can also add another one if it's necessary. So we can certainly accommodate it. I'm sure Jill will not disagree with that, but we have to have, out of courtesy to those at the table and to make their plans during their life and their business endeavors, we need some beacon of direction, and this is what the intent of this is to give council members, past and present, the opportunity to at least have an idea of what lies ahead. Okay, can I have it's been, Martin, I interpreted that as you moving that. Will you move this recommendation?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. All right, okay, I wanted to check just to make sure. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Council. And thank you, Kendra. Procedural bylaw inquiry. Deputy Mayor, would you be kind enough to take the gavel? This was put forth by me, and I would feel more comfortable if you took the gavel.
Yes, I can, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are now dealing with 8, number 2, procedural bylaw change. Questions or comments?
Can I give a report first, an introduction and a report?
Did you want to give a report first, Mayor Mayhew, or did you want Jill to speak to it?
I would like to give a report.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I'll be very brief. I will try not to reiterate what has been said in the past. All levels of governments are encouraged to have polite, transparent, and informed engagement. Comments and inquiries made by some of the horseshoe were deemed inappropriate by both staff and some members of council, resulting in the removal of this from our agenda in the spring of 21. I'm asking council to consider the restoration of this privilege with parameters that ensure that inquiries will be made in a balanced and fair manner. Advised by surprise is not an accepted style of governance. The Ottawa example allows councillors to reach out to staff in a transparent manner where all of council will be informed of the inquiry. It will allow staff the opportunity to know in advance what question relates to and enable better preparation. There are circumstances when the resolve to an issue must include a wider audience than one councillor and one staff member. This addition allows all of council to be informed and included in the discussion. Many inquiries, without question, will continue a pathway to resolution with a one-to-one discussion. This change in procedure will allow a more complex issue or a community-based issue to be brought before all of council for discussion and decision. No council member will be left out of the subject. The example of the Ottawa bylaw allows inquiries within a format of presentation that fosters success and respect. This example requires a submission of inquiry be 24 hours in advance of discussion on complex or significant inquiries. Staff has the opportunity to ask for an extension. In brief, I'm asking for balance, for the privilege of a councillor to make an inquiry without malice that all of council and the Southwest Middlesex community may be aware of, and to assure the opportunity of staff to be prepared and unsurprised. This is a vehicle for all of council to be engaged in a courteous manner on selected issues that our communities bring forward. Dialogue between all of council and administration is a prerequisite to good governance, transparency, and democracy. Some in our community may feel a disconnect or a detachment from the governance of Southwest Middlesex. This will help in restoring that connection. It is my opinion that it is not inquiries that diminish a reputation of council. It is the comments that are problematic. And this brings democracy back, transparency, and the ability for all of council to participate in a concern that's raised by members of our community. And thank you very much. I have a draft. I'm sure that council and the deputy mayor will want to know the constitution of that resolution. Why I am compelled to move this is that the following: that staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw to include a new section on regular council agendas entitled Inquiries, to allow members of council to put forth and make inquiries with notice and without malice, and that the draft amendment defines what an inquiry means, and that a formal process of submitting inquiries in advance of a meeting of council or a committee of council be included in the draft amendment, and that the amendment also outlines how standard inquiries and significant inquiries will be dealt with by staff. Deputy Mayor, I respectfully move this resolution.
That Mayor Mayhew, that's already been drafted, I believe.
Okay.
Okay. Are you handing that back now, or do you
I
want
am.
to see this through? Okay, thank you very much.
I'm handing it back, and I was hoping I would get a seconder from council, if you would call.
I will assist in that. Can I get a seconder from council on this, please? Seconded by Councillor Vink. Discussion, Mayor Mayhew, I'll hand that back to you.
Yeah, no, I think I don't want to beat this to death out of respect to all of council members. I've done the best to explain why it is important. I've explained in the past, I'm fully aware that there are other areas, but I know that there has been concerns raised in the past. And the one counselor to a member of our staff and resolving a problem is a great way to handle the vast number of problems. But occasionally there is always one that comes about where I feel, and I've been in the same position, where I would feel much more comfortable if the resolution could be determined by all of council rather than just one of us and a member of our administration. And this will not be overused. I do not believe this will be overused. I would hope that council, as mayor of this municipality, I have told all of council many times, probably 100 times, of the effectiveness of a dialogue with staff and getting the problem resolved. That's our job. But occasionally there is an issue where we would like to be informed of staff's position on and get their expertise on it and allow them some time to bring a more wholesome conversation forward to us. And again, I use the word transparency and democracy, and I think this is a fundamental principle of any level of government. And all levels of government are encouraged for those characteristics in this day and age.
So Mayor Mayhew, you want me to stay here till the vote's been called and we move on? Is that correct?
This notice of motion is now on the table. It has been moved and seconded, and it's up to council to determine where they would like to go from this.
Okay, Mayor Mayhew, can I just ask you what you're moving? Could you please be clear on that?
I read it, and can I read it again? That staff be directed to prepare a bylaw to amend the procedural bylaw to include a new section on regular council agendas entitled Inquiries, to allow members of council to put forward and make inquiries with notice and without malice, and that the draft amendment defines what an inquiry means, and that a formal process of submitting inquiries in advance of a meeting of council or at a committee of council be included in the draft amendment. And finally, that the amendment also outlines how standard inquiries and significant inquiries will be dealt with by staff and by council.
So Mayor Mayhew, is that inquiries must be submitted 24 hours prior to a meeting?
That will come back as the bylaw is drafted, okay? This motion, Deputy Mayor, is staff, staff will be directed to write the bylaw that captures the intent of this motion. They will come back to council with the bylaw written as it is deemed to be acted on, and then that bylaw would have to be approved by council or amended by council.
Okay, so Mayor Mayhew, council will, or staff will not come back with a bylaw unless council votes and supports the motion. The motion has
That's
got
correct.
to be clear.
That's
Yes, Jill.
That's correct.
Jill?
Yes, Jill.
Point of order. There is a draft bylaw included in the agenda. I hope that we all took the time to read it.
Okay. Okay.
But
Yes.
that's not what you're moving.
Yes,
Mayor
that's what I'm moving. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So to be clear, the draft bylaw that has been prepared by staff is what you're moving.
Yes.
Okay. And Councillor Schuldeis, you did second that, correct? Is that your understanding, Councillor Schuldeis?
Yes,
Okay.
I didn't second it, but
Councillor Vink.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry about that. I stand corrected. Councillor Vink, is that your understanding? That's what you're supporting?
Yes, it is, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much for clearing that up. Jill, do you have any questions on this?
I just was trying to get clarification on what was being moved because, yes, a draft bylaw has been prepared with the report. Both were requested by council and that's what I've provided.
I think I said that earlier on too. Anyway, thank you very much, Councillor or CAO Jill Belchamber for clearing that up. Are there any questions or comments on this motion? I saw Krista's hands first and then Councillor Schuldeis, so I'll take them in that order. Councillor Cowell.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion and that this motion be deferred until our next council meeting. It seems that there's a bit of confusion about the bylaw and whether or not the bylaw has been fully understood by everyone. So I'd like to make a motion to defer until the next council meeting. And that is an official amendment, motion to make an amendment.
Can I get a seconder for that amendment? I'll ask again. Would anyone second that amendment? That Councillor Choi, you are seconding that amendment. You're down here in my corner. I see you. Yes. You're muted. Okay, thank you very much. Discussion on that amendment.
I just think it would give everybody a little bit more time and understanding to know what they're voting on and to review the bylaw. And that way we can ask questions about it properly.
Is there any other questions or comments on that? Yes, Councillor Schuldeis.
I don't really, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I don't really understand the reason for this, considering it's in the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to read it.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote to defer this. Jill, did you want to read that out again?
So this is a secondary motion to the main motion, which is just that the motion be deferred and considered at the August council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to
I'd
call.
like to request a recorded vote on it, please.
That's fine. Record a vote, Jill.
Okay. Councillor Schuldeis,
No.
Councillor Bartlett,
No.
Deputy Mayor Wilkins,
No.
Mayor Mayhew,
No.
Councillor McGill,
No.
Councillor Choi, Yes. And Counselor Cowell
Yes.
and Counselor Vink.
No.
Okay, so the motion to defer does not carry.
So we have a motion in front of us that we need to get back to. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Yes, Counselor Schuldice.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to request a recorded vote again, please.
Before we do that, I just have a question I'd like to ask of our CAO. Jill, we have a section in our agenda. We've had it there forever and it's new business. So any counselor that would like to bring up anything at all, any inquiry, anything that they have a concern about, they would do so before the agenda was adopted each meeting. And at that point, that would give everybody on council the opportunity to say yay or nay. Is that correct or not?
Yes, that's how that works.
That's correct. So now what we're doing with this motion is we're handing this decision-making back to you to make 24 hours before the meeting, whether that is able to be put on the agenda as an inquiry. Is that correct?
This process would have it back to me, yes.
Okay, just so everyone knows that. Thank you, Jill. Yes, Councillor Cowell.
Thank you. This weekend, there was some concerns about the landfill. And I sent an email about it and I got some follow-up emails. And I wanted to hear a little bit about the resolution and ask a few more questions about it, see what had happened, what the follow-up was. So at the beginning of this meeting, I added it to the agenda. It's as simple as that if we want to have things added to the agenda. Every single one of you voted to allow it. And my concern is that if we allow this process, because I didn't ask 24 hours in advance, it might not be allowed to be added to the agenda. And in a lot of ways, that gives less transparency to ratepayers and more control to staff. So I will not be supporting a change like this. I know that we have mechanisms that allow us to bring things to council. We just need to understand our agenda, our procedure bylaw, and Robert's Rules of Orders.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Jill, are you ready?
Certainly, if you're ready to call the vote.
I'll call the vote.
Okay, Councillor Schuldice.
You're muted.
Yes.
I just did this. Councillor Deputy Mayor Wilkins.
No.
Mayor Mayhew.
Yes.
Councillor McGill
Yes.
and Councillor Choi.
No.
Councillor Vink
Yes.
and Councillor Bartlett.
No.
Okay.
Jill, did you ask Councillor Cowell? If you
Sorry.
did, I missed it.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor Cowell. Did I miss you?
You
No,
did miss me.
sorry. Okay, so it's a tied vote and this therefore doesn't pass.
Mayor Mayhew, I'm going to hand the gavel back to you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, for looking after that. And thank you, Council. Uh, 8C. Oh, yeah, 8C building. We had the consent agenda, noted the building activity, and it is moving along. 8D is Kristen with us here. Finance, devices for council members, and her recommendations before us. Jill, would you like to speak to this, or would Kristen? Oh, Kristen's right there. Yes, Kristen, thank you, and please take the floor.
Thank you very much. Each term of council, we provide new devices for all of the counselors to use to be able to access their agendas and their emails and read the reports. And coming up on budget season and of course a new council, we've gotten some options from County IT. So you can see we put in the budget for the current year, $6,500 for iPads. Now, County is saying that they're finding some of the counselors would prefer the iPads with the larger screen, and some counselors prefer a laptop with a keyboard. So the choices are in front of you under the financial implications. There's also a modest savings. County will be picking up the cost of the mayor's cell phone going forward. So as far as budget impacts go, you can see the options and their financial implications there. So I'd be happy to let IT know what council's wishes are.
Thank you, Kristen, very much. Council, are there any questions in regard to Kristen's report on devices? If you'd like to ask them through the chair to her, please go ahead. Yep, Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
Thank you. Mine's more of a comment. A two-pronged comment. So we've had the smaller iPads for the last 4 years, and none of us would have imagined we'd be having this many digital or remote meetings as we've had. So I can appreciate the need for a larger screen. We have all the devices at home, and we do have a larger one, and it works much better than for meetings and other services and things like that. That's from our own personal experience. Do I want one? No, I don't, but we have to make this decision for people who might not be here. So with that in mind, I would move the motion to do option 2. And my other comment was just the fact that I noted that Councillor Schuldeis and I are both away from home and probably not on Wi-Fi. So it would be nice to have some of that be a component going forward, but that'll be a future council's decision. But it's something to be mindful of, is we never expected the need for connectivity when we made some of these decisions 3.5 years ago. So I think it would be something nice to consider for the 2023 budget, but that will be a new council's decision to make.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cowell. Council, any further discussions? Okay.
I moved the second option.
And, all right, a seconder for that, please. Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Discussion on option 2. And Councillor Cowell, you certainly are correct in that we have been very dependent on our devices, and I can see that a larger screen would be beneficial. Last call for questions. Kristen, just a minor question to you there. It comes up at county occasionally. If in the event, because of an accessibility need, that modifications are made, and we would be covered under our accessibility policy in regard to this as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thanks very much. Just wanted to check with you on that. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of the option that was recommended by Councillor Cowell and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilkins? Yes, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. We are now down to operations, and we will be looking at the water and wastewater modeling study. Greg, could you extend the pleasure of introducing our speaker on this? Is he with us? Mr. LaHaye?
Did we miss?
We've got one more report from Kristen.
One more report. I'm sorry. Yeah, missed it. Reserve Building Fund, you betcha. Kristen, I'm sorry to cut you off there.
I know finance is so riveting.
Yeah, I know.
And like, it doesn't get more exciting than making a new reserve fund, but.
I think this might be a good idea. So you go ahead and present the council.
So with the new fees and services bylaw, the intent of that is to obviously have the building department self-funding. So in the event that we collect more revenue from building permits than we are outlaying for the services of the building department, we are required to set those funds aside. So according to our reserve and reserve fund bylaw that we have in place right now, council needs to approve the establishment of any new reserves and reserve funds. We have some funding set aside from the last 2 years from the building department. It's sitting in the tax rate stabilization, segregated in there to denote that it's from building services, but it's not from a surplus of revenue. It's from being below budget on the services that we're paying for building services.
Okay, thank you. Well, we certainly, the timing is correct for this, Kristen. Thank you very much. Council, any questions regarding the reserve services, building reserve for services fund that you'd like to direct? Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Allen. To Kristen, the Building Service Reserve Fund, what are the costs included? For instance, we just hired a development review coordinator, and to me, that's a building service cost. Is that included in that?
It is not currently. I have it in under like a planning and development department. I'd have to look to see, maybe we can have a portion of that allocated there. So this isn't going to increase costs at all, and it's not going to change the budget at all. It is really because if we collect more money than we are expending, specifically for building services, because it's a set fee, we need to reserve those funds to be used. We can't use funds collected for building permits to fund the rest of the municipal organization, if that makes more sense.
Yes, and Jill may add to this too. Thank you, Kristen. Jill, please go ahead.
Yeah, so as Kristen noted, this is an obligatory reserve fund that needs to be established. But the development review coordinator position is not associated with building services specifically. There's no part of that is implementing the requirements of the building code. So that individual might help to provide general information about building services, etc. But that's not what the reserve fund is about. So just to provide some clarity to that. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, no problem. Councillor Cowell, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just was wondering, being as Councillor Vink brought it up, is that position potentially something that we could offset the income that we get from development charges as a switch up? Say, hey, pay for that employee.
Yeah, I'll let Jill answer that question in terms of it's a business administrative end. Please go ahead, Jill.
I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but I will ask the consultants that question, okay?
Okay. Last call for questions. Seeing none, the recommendation is before you. That council approve the establishment of Building Services Reserve Fund. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Bartlett, seconder. Councillor McGill. Last call for questions. And Kristen, it's kind of a tax rate stabilization thing too. It puts money aside that will not come out of the general levy. So that's good. And that's what we need. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Unanimously carried. Greg, I think we got you on the schedule now. And thank you for your patience. Water wastewater modeling study, something that we certainly know that in the events of these heavy rainfalls and development we have, it's an important criteria for our municipality. And would you be please introduce the gentleman that is with us this evening to lead council in this direction?
Right, certainly can do that. Can you hear me okay, Mayor Allen?
Perfectly.
All right, I have provided a report to council with regards to the presentation tonight, which does have a recommendation. So after the presentation's done, I'd certainly like to speak to that as well. Council did approve WSP Canada to prepare a master servicing study for both our water and wastewater systems. That was done in May of 2021. Just a little bit about that, which really is an in-depth look at both systems and the future, and what would be required moving forward to have both systems accommodate future growth, that type of thing. And it also takes a real close look at the challenges of the system itself. Sorry, we may get a bark here and there, but I'm by myself with 4 dogs right now. So out of this particular report, I would highlight the challenges that are in front of council today, as well as in the future. These are serious challenges associated with both systems. It is important that we understand what's in front of us here. Sorry, I've got doggies. But anyways, they're in front of us. Tonight we do have the other thing I'd like to mention is that this particular study also gives us a model, which we can put information into the model itself to determine our current capacities on the system, as well as whether we can service certain developments, that type of thing, within our current capacities in both water and wastewater. So without further ado, I introduce tonight Antoine Lahaye, who is from WSP Canada. He has been the project manager for this particular project, and he will give us a presentation tonight and take questions. Bienvenue, Antoine.
Merci, Greg. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Greg. My name is Antoine. As Greg introduced, I'm part of WSP, and I led the team that put together the final report that we submitted to the municipality of Southwest Middlesex. So if you'll allow me, I will share my screen, and if I can, that's sharing. Do I have the capacity to share my screen?
Yep. Gave you the co-host ability, Antoine, so it should just be the green button down below.
My screen, it's the big green button. I could have. All right, can you see the introductory slide there?
You can, Antoine.
Great, great. Welcome. Okay, great. So as an introduction, a bit of a high-level description of the study. The fundamental components of this study were twofold. The first, as Greg described, was the development of a water and wastewater hydraulic model. The benefits of hydraulic modeling are really to help forecast and study the impact of either operational changes and or growth for water and wastewater systems. Having developed these tools through the study, we were able to then study exactly that, the impact of growth on the municipality, and then in turn provide recommendations that can help support said growth for a 20-year planning horizon. The way that the presentation will be broken down is we're going to first go through the high-level findings of our water study, followed by recommendation and cost of, followed by the wastewater. On the water study, we evaluated a few different things. Traditionally, we look at water pressure and availability of fire flow for emergency services. As part of this study as well, we considered and evaluated a few water quality components of relevance. The table that I'm presenting here has a lot of numbers. The magic number when it comes to water distribution system is 275 kPa. That is the municipalities and the MECP's minimum required pressure that we don't want to go below in water distribution systems. Now, as part of the study, we included Glencoe, Melbourne, Wardsville, and Appin, as well as a few rural areas that connect these communities. Generally speaking, the pressure in the system is adequate and there are no major pressure concerns. There was one junction, which is an arbitrary dot in the model, that was below the pressure of 275, but only by 1 kPa, and it was deemed to be insignificant and therefore not a major problem. In some of the rural communities, however, in particular along Parkhouse Drive between Thames Road and Melbourne, and then again along Melbourne between Glendon and the community of Melbourne, we found that there were a few local high points, elevation-wise, that correlated to some lower pressures. Now, generally speaking, these are not a major concern, given that low pressure is localized in areas where water services may not be located. However, we did study different recommendations and projects that could be put forth to help maintain pressure in the existing conditions, but also support growth. The most significant recommendations and the most significant findings were with regards to the community of Appin, and in particular with the fire flow availability. Traditionally, a fire flow ranging between 50 liters per second and 75 liters per second would be a target for residential, in particular single family and light multi-residential development and or homes. And we found that in the community of Appin, the fire flow availability generally fell below that 50 liter per second mark. In order to help maintain pressures along Parkhouse and Melbourne, but as well in order to support the availability of emergency services throughout Appin, one of WSP's recommendation was to build a new pump station along Parkhouse on the southwest side of Thames Road. What that would effectively do is act as a supply of energy into the system and allow for more pressure and more flow to reach the community of Appin, and therefore help as the community wants to grow. The addition of the pump station would also be done with a new supply main from Parkhouse into Dougal Street into Appin. The reason we recommended a second main along this corridor would be essentially for resiliency of supply. Currently, there are two supplies into Appin, one along Thames Road and another coming from the northeast. If one of those two supply lines were to go down either for operation, maintenance, and or for an emergency repair, there would remain only one supply into the community, and that would jeopardize pressure and availability of emergency services. So in order to maintain resiliency, we also recommended as part of our study that a second water main be added into Appin. Similarly, in the community of Glencoe, we found a very similar conclusion. There are very few major supplies into the community itself, which more or less forms a dead-end community or a dead-end network. And therefore, our recommendation was to introduce a second supply line either along Dundonald Main Street, which is denoted by the red line labeled 1, or through possible future developments that would tie into Tanya Drive, denoted by the yellow line 2. This slide here demonstrates the various costs that were calculated for these projects. At this point, these costs could be classified as Class D or conceptual costs and are mostly material costs. And I should also note that WSP's recommendation for a booster pump station should also be followed up by a more detailed environmental assessment study, which could evaluate various alternatives, location, placements, and alignments for the pump station and water main itself. With regards to the water quality component of the water study, there were two major elements that were to be studied. The first was chlorine residuals in the Melbourne standpipe, and the second was the presence of dissolved manganese in the water supply. Speaking to the standpipe and the chlorine residual, what WSP has found in studying the data is that there is a minimum volume of water that has to be maintained in this standpipe in order for the operation of the system to go smoothly. And in maintaining that minimum volume of water, particularly during the summer months where there's a lot of sun exposure and heat, there is a stratification, a temperature stratification of water. And as a result, there's gasification of the chlorine residuals, essentially meaning that chlorine residuals decay over time. So in order to maintain chlorine residuals in the standpipe and allow for these residuals to be further distributed into the system, maintaining good water quality, the major recommendation here would be to add mixing into the standpipe, essentially generating movement and mixing of the water, of the body of water within the standpipe, so that it's not a first in, first out approach to the water. We understand also that recently there has been a chlorine dosage pump that was changed locations from the inlet of the standpipe to the outlet of the standpipe. We strongly recommend closely monitoring the impacts of that change at the standpipe. Moving to the manganese concentration, we studied the data and found that the high manganese concentration within the water distribution system correlated to 3 significant rain events in the last year or two. Now, the rain events naturally cause runoff into Lake Erie, which then enters the water supply. We understand, WSP understands that the water supply into the municipality is not governed by the municipality, but our recommendation would still be to introduce some manganese treatments, which could include chemical oxidation or nanofiltration at the water supply, so at the source, the Tri-County water source, to help regulate manganese concentration during these high water or storm events that cause high floodplains and precipitation into the lake. So as a summary, the overall recommendations for the water there were 5 of them. The first 2 related to Appin would be the booster pump station and the Appin secondary water main supply. Now, the level of urgency that was allocated to these 2 projects would be 1 and 2. The reasons for the urgency is that this is a current challenge that would be made greater with the growth in Appin. And that's why we placed those 2 projects at the top of the list. Our simulations using the model that was calibrated to field tests predict an increase of up to 114% in the emergency supply throughout Appin with the addition of this booster station. Are there any questions with regards to the water network? I realize I went through some of these slides quickly, but we're going to switch over to the wastewater system, and I'd like the opportunity to answer any maybe water questions while they're fresh in your minds.
Okay. If you give back the screen to us, we can look for hands. Are there any questions, Council? If not, if I can't see you, Council, because of the sharing of the slides, just please, there you go. Yes, if there's any questions to Council regarding this, the Chair will certainly entertain them. I'll watch for your hands. Okay. Seeing Antoine, in your research and dialogue, I know you've talked to staff on that. Have you had any conversations with the Aqua who administers our water system? Was there any dialogue between your company and theirs?
Absolutely. Aqua was a stakeholder in this project, and we've had many conversations with Aqua and their team. They were great in providing various data and inputs. We hosted throughout the project, a number of workshops where we demonstrated our progress, and prior to submitting our final report, summarized our findings. And Aqua had been great in providing feedback, and they were very surprised with the accuracy of the model based on their understanding of the system's operation. So yes, Mayor, we did have a number of conversations with them, and they were involved throughout the process.
That is comforting, and they concur with your findings, of course.
To my understanding, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Last call for questions. Seeing none, Antoine, please continue at your leisure. We're making pretty good time here, so you proceed.
Thank you. So moving on to the wastewater assessment. The wastewater assessment, we evaluated really two components in the system. The linear components, which is the actual capacity of the sewers, as well as the vertical component, which in this case was focused on the Victoria wastewater pumping station. The model did not predict any significant bottlenecks or capacity constraints in the existing or future planning horizons for the wastewater system, which in short means that as far as the wastewater system is concerned, growth is not a problem. On the vertical side at this pump station, WSP understands that there may have been existing capacity problems and flooding events at the pump station, and that is something that we validated with the modeling, and have found that with growth in Glencoe in particular, under high flow events, so these peak events, which can correlate sometimes to heavy rainfall events, it is anticipated that the pump station would see and experience capacity constraints. What we're demonstrating by these two graphs are essentially on the left that the existing wet well at the station may be undersized for the future expected flows that were simulated. And on the right side is what is a pump curve. Now, the orange dot on that pump curve on the bottom right demonstrates that we are really close to runoff, as in the pump may not be big enough to maintain and to convey the total of the wastewater flows downstream to the wastewater treatment plant, and its efficiency took a big dive and is down to roughly 22% with those projected flows. Now, we understand that there has been work done in that pump station recently, so some of our recommendations included considering increasing the size of the wet well, which would mean it can hold more wastewater for longer, and considering adjusting and making the pump bigger. Now that can be done by point blank replacing the pump, but can also be done by replacing impeller size with the pump, which is a much less invasive and more cost-effective solution. But the other strategy that we investigated was with regards to the force main. Now in a wastewater system, wastewater flows downhill by gravity, but eventually you have to lift it uphill and bring it to its endpoint, which is what this Victoria pump station does. And a force main is a pressurized wastewater pipe. The few solutions or recommendations that we suggested with regards to the wastewater force main were three. The first would be keep the existing force main and install a twin, which would run in parallel to it, increasing the capacity. And then the second option would be just replace the existing force main with a bigger one. Now we evaluated two different sizes, which would make up options 2 and 3. The more cost-effective in the long run when considering operation and maintenance would be the replacement of the existing force main with a larger one. It's pretty straightforward. Rather than having to maintain and operate 2 pressure pipes, you only have 1. But that is a big project as well. And we understand that, again, this is another project that would be subject to an environmental assessment prior to making a decision. And all three of these options would be studied in more detail in conjunction with possibly upsizing wet wells and pumps. So the recommendation from WSP was presented in this fashion. We recommend one of these three options, subject to a further environmental assessment. The final slide of my presentation today is really a summary of costs that was calculated based on this Class D costing, which is a very conceptual level costing exercise. The water supply would be in the range of $4.5 to $5.5 million, which would include both the Appin pump station as well as the secondary supplies into Appin and Glencoe. On the water quality side, we're looking at less than $1 million in retrofits for the standpipe, and understanding again that it's a tri-county water supply, but we included that cost as part of this summary. On the wastewater side, we're looking at somewhere between $8 and $9 million, depending on the option that is to be selected with regards to force main replacements. So at this time, I'd like to thank you for your attention and the opportunity to present our report and findings. And I am happy to take any questions as they pertain to the wastewater study.
Thank you very much, Antoine, and thank you, Greg, for your introduction to this gentleman. We certainly will take questions. Councillor Vink, go ahead through the chair to Mr.
Thank you, Mayor. To Antoine. You mentioned about EA studies. The cost of EA studies, is that included in the cost? And those costs that you provided, Antoine, are they today's cost? Could they be higher in a year or two down the road?
Excellent questions. The costs presented are project specific and generally focused on material costs for these projects. So the cost of the EA was not included. And similarly, those are today dollars.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that's why it's important to get these grants and push the Minister of Infrastructure, because it's certainly are big dollars we're talking here, Antoine.
Absolutely.
Yes, Councillor Cal, please go ahead, directly to Antoine if you like.
This question isn't actually for Antoine. So through the chair to Mr. Storms, we've talked a bit about development charges previously in this meeting. I feel pretty confident in this question, but can we be using our development charges to help pay for this type of infrastructure if we get them?
Yeah, through you, Mary Ellen, I think Jill probably is the best one to respond to that because she's looking after that file, but we'll see.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Yeah, yes, Councillor Cowell, that would be exactly the type of thing that we want to provide to the consultant for the who's producing the study for development charges, is this modeling information. So this is a really important piece for a number of reasons, but that's absolutely one of them.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing no hands, there is a recommendation before us. It's excellent report, Antoine. I want to thank you very much for that. It was a complicated subject, but it was very well written and very understandable. And certainly to those who worked with you, I know our administration did, and we thank them as well, and particularly our service provider, Aqua. I'm glad to hear that they were part of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. It was a broad team within WSP, so I will relay the thanks to my WSP team, and in return, I'd like to thank the municipality for putting their trust in us and for helping us along the way to deliver this project for you. We hope there's good value that comes out of it.
Okay. Perhaps you hang on to make sure you realize what the resolution of council is. And Councillor Cal, I saw your hand go up. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm excited to see numbers. We've been hearing about the water pressure issues in Appin for many years now, and the biggest one being fire safety. The fact that a pumper truck has to be brought into that area as a result of the low pressure has been a concern for those residents for a very long time, and the fire department. I've heard both from firefighters and residents that this is an issue, and they expect us to do something about it. So with this in mind, I am thrilled to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved. Council, I'll ask for a seconder and we'll continue discussion. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor Wilkins seconded the recommendation. Questions again? I don't want to leave anyone out. Yes, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead.
Sorry, pushed the wrong button. Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Mayhew, for that. And thank you very much for this study. It's very thorough. I think that everything's been looked into, and I'm looking forward to seeing the budget. My question is to Jill, and I don't know where she is. I don't see her here. Jill, are we able to borrow from Middlesex County for a project like this?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely. There's an option and a funding program that was been put in place a few decades ago because of the funding that the county receives from the City of London related to roads. It allows, and the way the county structured it at the time was allows local municipalities to take out no interest loans. And I'm fairly certain Kristen can confirm the timeline, but we've had a couple of those, and at this point are only allowed 2 at a time. But those 2 have either recently wrapped up or are wrapping up shortly. So she's nodding.
Yes, they wrapped up this year.
Yep.
That's good. That's good news for us. Like Krista, I'm glad to see that the pressure issues are addressed in Appin, but I'm also happy to see that maybe some of the issues on King and Victoria Street will be alleviated from, from going forward with some of the recommendations. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody that was involved, Greg,
yeah,
and Kristen and Jill and whoever else, Aqua. Thank you.
We have 2 questions on the floor. Councillor McGill, your hand was up first, followed by Councillor Cowell. Please go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. This question is for Kristen. How much do we have currently in reserves for water and wastewater?
Yeah.
Right, that's a good question. We have about 1.3 million in water, just under 200,000 in Glencoe sewers, and Wardsville sewers don't carry a reserve balance. They're funded through the tax rate each year in part.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, I see your hand, but Councillor Cowell is before you. I'll let Councillor Cowell please go forward. Yeah. Oh, you're muted there, Krista.
I'm happy to let the deputy mayor go if it's a follow-up to those comments. Otherwise, I will take my turn.
Oh,
Well, I just missed, if I could, Kristen, if you could repeat what we have in reserve for wastewater, please. Thank you.
Sorry, for wastewater in Glencoe, we have just under 200,000. And in Wardsville, we don't carry a reserve fund for them.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Cowell, you may go ahead now.
Thank you so much. So one of the questions I had, and it might be able to be answered by Mr. Storms or Mr. LaHaye, but it was the idea, we talked about modeling in Appin, and I know there's been some limitations on being able to continue developing in Appin as a result of not having an adequate understanding of what our water capacities are. So I'm wondering if we were able to do these improvements in places like Appin, Melbourne, and Glencoe, what would that look like for growth within Southwest Middlesex? How many houses do you think we could get in those areas? What would the impact be? Ballpark estimation.
That's a difficult question. It's from
I think Antoine could probably give us, you know, the way this was looked at in the report itself, and I can follow that up as well.
Absolutely. So the question of Appin is not a simple one. The limitation of fire flow within Appin is not necessarily due to the size of the physical pipes in the ground. When evaluating availability of fire flow in any system, what happens is water is emitted at one fire hydrant in Appin, but there is a pressure limitation. The drop in pressure anywhere else in the system cannot go below a certain threshold. Now, the way that the Appin system is currently configured is it ties in with Glencoe, with Melbourne, and with the rest of the really wide-ranging network. It reaches out quite far. By adding this pump station, what we would effectively do is create what we refer to as a pressure district or a pressure zone for Appin, and the impact of lowering that pressure as the fire hydrant opens would become much more localized, therefore allowing for more water before we reach that threshold. So it's a bit of a network planning discussion, but you know, adding that pump station would also help in providing just more energy so that we take longer to reach that lower threshold of pressure during a fire flow event. Now, with regards to day-to-day pressure, that pump station would help immediately as well, and would provide sufficient energy. In our study, we concluded that yes, with the addition of a pump station or a new source of energy and the delineation of a pressure district for Appin, growth would be able to resume in that community. Greg, I don't know if I've summarized it clearly enough.
Well, I think you did. The only thing I would add is that, you know, the process that we recently went through with WSP, because we are experiencing growth in Appin. So, you know, we did put the information into the model itself to determine whether there would be any impact on other residents in Appin. And then we would get an answer through the utilization of the model. And in this particular case, we did put 3 properties through the model, and the results that we got back were positive, that the impacts, you know, there wouldn't be any impacts pretty much on the residents in Appin. So that's one of the great things about this particular process that we went through, is that we now have a model moving forward. So even in the determination of future subdivisions or future growth in Appin, the model would be used to determine, you know, whether they were capable of moving forward or not. So, and in the context of our complete system, and that's what you have to remember. I mean, we're only talking about a small corner of a major system that goes, you know, from Wardsville down to Melbourne and you know, up into the Appin area and into a lot of the rural parts of the municipality. So this is a key thing. And, you know, it did allow us within the last week, just as of last Friday, when we got the report from WSP, that we could permit 3 houses or 3 properties to move forward connecting to our water system.
Yeah, the actual recommendations of the study are important, and it was a great outcome of the study. But maybe in my biased opinion, one of the greater things that come out of this study is in fact these water and wastewater models. And these are the types of tools that can be used to help and forecast and to help and study the impact of growth, and are great tools for that. And they're not meant to be sitting on a virtual shelf somewhere. These tools can be used and maintained and updated to help with this type of study and evaluate the impact of new development on existing services. Okay,
thank you very much. The recommendation has been moved and seconded. I believe everyone has had a chance at reading this. The council approved the Southwest Middlesex Master Servicing Study and that a copy of the report be sent to the MECP as requested, and that capital recommendations be included in the 2023 capital budget discussions. The chair will call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. Carried unanimously. Thank you again, Mr. LaHaye. It's very good to see you, and we certainly welcome you to Southwest Middlesex. I'm sure we'll meet down the road again.
Absolutely. Thanks, team. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Greg. Andrew, it's your time to shine now. We are looking at the Brinka Drain, Section 78. Could you introduce the subject to this council?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The background is brief. June of this year, staff were notified that there were sinkholes in the drain consistently throughout the past, and the requester would like a long-lasting solution. As a result, the property owner submitted a formal request under Section 78 to provide reconstruction. On June 8th council meeting, council directed staff to notify property owners within the watershed and also the Lower Thames Conservation Authority, after which the Director of Operations, Greg Storms, has submitted a request on behalf of the Road Authority to replace the culvert under Tate's Road. There is still time going forward if there are other concerns within the watershed that people still can submit requests or petitions if the project should need to be expanded. At this point, I recommend that council appoint Spreet Engineering under Section 78 of the Drainage Act to produce a report to reconstruct the Brinka drain based on the request.
Okay, I'll entertain a mover and a seconder, and it'll be followed by questions. Moved by McGill, seconded by Bartlett. And council, please entertain your questions to Andrew if you have any. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Appoint Spreet under Section 78. I see no hands. All in favor? Carried unanimously. That being passed, Andrew, could you introduce the Wolf Drain to us?
Yes, sir. The background on this, Mr. Wolf submitted a Section 4 petition in late May of this year. Like other projects that this council has seen, this is an existing drain that is an unofficial agreement. Mr. Wolf would like this to be a municipal drain. This went to council on June 8th. Council directed staff to notify property owners of or potential property owners of the proposed Wolf drain. At this point, there's no questions or concerns. No expansion of the project at this point. Similar to the other one, there is still time for people to submit petitions if they should choose. At this point, I do recommend that council appoints Spreet Engineering under Section 4 of the Drainage Act to produce a report to construct the Wolf drain based on the petition received.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions to Andrew? Cheryl, yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
So moved.
Okay, a seconder for that, please. Councillor Cowell. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you again, Andrew. We have one more, the Cavalier drain.
Yes, sir. The background requests for tenders were sent out on May 13th. The tenders are based on the December 16th report submitted by Spreet & Associates. The closing date for this project was June 3rd, and given the situation, the timing and council meetings, this was the soonest we could get it to. The engineer's estimate is $128,100 plus HST, and the lowest bid is from New Day Excavating, $129,600. And you can see within the report that Spreet and Associates have recommended that New Day Excavating is awarded this project, that all terms have been reviewed by Spreet and everything is in order. And it is at this point that I recommend council approves the recommendation as provided by Spreet and Associates to award the tender for the Kevlar's drain to New Day Excavating for the amount described in this report, plus HST, subject to no appeals, and to which we have not received any.
Thank you, Andrew, very much. Questions, Councillor McGill?
Well, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I was just going to move the recommendation.
Okay, the chair will acknowledge that. Is there a seconder? Councillor Vink. Continue with questions. Any questions to Andrew? Yes, Martin, go ahead, and followed by Councillor McGill.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. To New Day Excavating, is that a new company?
Yes, it is through the mayor. Yes, it is newer. They have completed a project already of ours, and everything went to plan. And Spreet had done all of the supervision, and I made a stop in, and everything seemed to be in order. So I think that this is a reasonable direction.
Okay, good. Thank you, and Councillor McGill. Yep, Councillor McGill, your turn.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mayhew, to Andrew through the mayor. These start dates and completion dates, they're more or less just estimates, right? Because sometimes we've seen them not be done till a year after the suggested start date or completion date.
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor McGill. They are suggestions. However, I do try to keep them within that time frame, unless there's something that is major that would prevent the contractor from abiding by it. Then yes, I do try to have them abide by that. And it is it's a range, so it's not as if they are going to start on July 30th and they keep working until September. It is more of a perhaps we'll get there in July, but if we don't, then we'll get there in August, September, that type of thing.
Okay. Council, we've discussed the recommendation. I believe everyone's had a chance to entertain their questions to Andrew. We'll call the motion. All in favor of the recommendation as stipulated? Carried. I just lost my screen. Now I got it back. Okay, thank you, Andrew, very much for those entertaining those three drainage issues. We appreciate those all be approved, Council.
You.
Greg, I believe you may be speaking to number 5, the recommendation motion on the submission of Park and Play. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I certainly can. And through you, Mayor Allen, the council, you can hear me okay?
Perfectly, yes.
Perfect. As council is aware, we did prove this particular project in the 2022 capital budget. We issued a request for proposal, which is an RFP to professional companies for the design and construction installation of accessible, inclusive playground equipment for the Oppen Park. The RFP was released on June 28th, closed on the July 20th, and we received 2 submissions with regards to this project. The submissions itself were evaluated by a committee that was comprised of Melissa Tai, myself, and Sarah Savoy, who is the accessibility coordinator from Middlesex County. The criteria I have put in front of you, which is how we evaluated each proposal. In the scoring is an average of all 3 evaluators. Our Park and Play design finished with 94.6 and Open Space Solutions was 84.6. I do have a little bit of financial information there, which this particular park and play proposal was at 200,000. That's our HST commitment, which puts the project $3,200 over. The only thing I will mention in this particular RFP that was issued, it does give us the opportunity to negotiate with the company itself for additions or deletions from the current plan that's in place. I do have a recommendation that's before council, and I will look to Jill to see how council wishes to handle and the mayor this particular recommendation, because I know that we had made the suggestion to look at some of the successful RFP enclosed.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Some of that information council would be confidential under the tendering process, so that may be something that we certainly have to be considered. I will I'm going to ask Jill that in a minute. Deputy Mayor, I see your hand. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. If council chooses, we can go in camera right now to look at those RFPs before we make the decision on the recommendation. It's entirely up to council.
Council, to deal with this for the most efficiency, are there any comments in regard to the request that has been put forward? Yes, Councillor Cowell, please go ahead.
I know there are some folks watching this meeting hoping to see the bylaws at the end with the naming of the street. And with that in mind, I would prefer to have all of our closed sessions at the end so that there isn't splicing and then going back on YouTube and then coming back. So if we can get back on YouTube for those folks that are watching, I'm fine with that. But alternatively, I don't mind coming back quickly. We do a rise and report. So if we could cover that additional motion at the end, that would be great too.
Yeah, I think that would be in order as well. I think we can deal with all the committee of the whole stuff, all the committee of the whole at one spot, and we won't lose our listening audience. Council, we will defer this recommendation to committee of the whole. Could I have a motion for that? And then we'll come and rise and report. Yes, Jill, can you clarify that? Am I off track?
Yeah, sure. I think what the deputy mayor was saying is to expedite this report, you could go into closed session right now to take a look at the information Greg has to share and then come back in open. You can't defer the whole report to committee of the whole.
Okay.
It would just be to review that confidential information that was supplied to us.
Okay, so I think when council make a $200,000 decision, I think we'd like to see some of the numbers on it. So Deputy Mayor, will you entertain a motion to your recommendation there? And
Mayor Mayhew, you have to take a motion to go in camera first.
Okay. Then council is forthcoming. May I have a mover to go into committee of the whole to discuss this recommendation, to review the submissions? Moved by Councillor McGill, second by, I'm watching for hands, council, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Discussion in favor? We'll go into committee of the whole at 8:48.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. I won't go forward till you give me the okay.
I need to be able to share too.
Yeah, that's important.
Okay, now.